It's Powerback time on the Gutsy Podcast, your 20-minute boost to reclaim and refocus your energy. Get ready to have bursts of clarity, a boost of confidence, and the practical steps you need to make gutsy moves forward. You've got big things to do, so let's get your power back. Today, I'm going to answer one of the biggest questions that I get on a regular basis, which is, Laura, how did you get into this work? From my days as a graphic designer at the phonebook, yes, that old relic, to running a branding agency for 16 years, buying a commercial building and selling it, figuring out that, hey, I think I'm a speaker, and then going all in on speaking, coaching, and running a top 1.5 podcast, it's been a little bit of a ride. Today, I'm going to give you the speed dating version of how I got into the work that I do now, which is helping women to make the bold moves that they can't stop thinking about but keep putting off, speaking on stages around the world, and running a podcast that has taken on a life of its own. This Powerback is rooted in trusting yourself, listening to those nudges, believing in your ability to figure things out, and you guessed it, making the gutsy move to get it. Whether you're thinking, how the hell did she do this? Or you're standing on the edge of your next gutsy move. This Powerback's going to feel a little bit like a lightning bolt of motivation with some practical reminders that, you know what, you can do your own version of this too. Gather round the fire, my children, as I tell you about the story of a girl who didn't want to put up with shit she didn't like. I mean, that's really the essence of it, okay? I did not know that gutsy was like imprinted in my DNA. I've always been the one that goes first, the one that figures it out, the one that says, hey, why are we doing it like this? Let's try it another way. And settling has just never been my jam. I think one of my first like big notable gutsy moves was when I moved out of my house weeks after high school graduation in 2002 for Inquiring Minds to move away an hour and a half and start college early. At the time I was 17, I had been saving up my own money. I had been working my own job. I put myself through college. I've just always been that person that's like, if I want something, I will figure out a way. And if I don't know how to get it, I will ask questions, or I will learn, or I will tinker the hell out of it until I know. So I'm going to give you the speed dating version of the last 24 years. Okay. I want to remind you that none of the shit that you are hearing me talk about today happened quickly, happened super easily, and certainly did not happen overnight. But as I sit here in current day, this is 2026, looking back at the last 24 years, I can very, very, very clearly see how the theme of my life has been strung through every single scenario, the good stuff, the bad stuff, and everything in between. And you know that saying, we teach what we most need to learn? Listen. When I declared that gutsy was like my thing, right? That is my brand. That is my mantra. That is how I live. That is how I teach. That's how I show up. You can bet your entire ass that the universe is always like, okay, you first. If you're going to help other people make gutsy moves, you got to be making those gutsy moves on your own. So I move out when I'm 17. I go to college for 2 years. It's like speed, okay? Like the most intense graphic design program that I think could have ever existed. My first job out of college, I was stoked about, okay? Wait for it. I was a graphic designer for the phonebook. Now at the time, we're talking 2004 here, okay? The phonebook was still a thing. Social media didn't exist, okay? Like we're talking about a whole different era. And I was stoked because this was one of the first places that I applied to and they chose me. And so we commuted for a little while and then we eventually moved back home and I worked at the phonebook for a couple of years. And it was one of those situations where I thought that I loved it and then I realized what I didn't love. You know, sometimes you go into things thinking like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then you start doing it and you realize like, oh, maybe it's not. Or you love it for a certain period of time and then you max out, right? You just hit the top. There's nowhere else for you to go. It doesn't stimulate you anymore. And that's what started to happen at the phonebook. As you can imagine, it was just as exciting as it sounds. I mean, we primarily worked with 4 colors, red, black, blue, and yes, yellow. And every once in a while, we would get to do a full color ad. And let me tell you, that was a celebratory day as a graphic designer. I grew and expanded and met a lot of really great people and I got what I needed. And around that same time, AJ and I, my husband and I, decided that we were going to start a family. We got pregnant fairly quickly, which I'm so grateful for. And I can remember the day that I was like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell my boss. And I go in the door and I'm thinking, this is going to be awesome. They're going to be so excited for me. And when I shared that I was expecting, what I thought was going to be a joyous moment was actually met with a lot of disappointment. I could feel the energy shift in the room. It felt like all of a sudden I was a bother instead of an asset. And after that moment, nothing was really the same. Tensions were building, situations got kind of weird. And there was one particular day where I could remember the words so clearly. There was an error in an ad that several of us had been working on together. And my boss came to me and said, Laura, I'm no more disappointed in you than I am myself. And when I tell you that that moment fucking broke me, I went home crying. We were meeting at Applebee's that night for whatever reason, my whole family, like my husband's side of the family. And I can remember sitting in Applebee's. At this point, I am 6 months pregnant and I am sobbing. I am sobbing over probably something very deep fried. And I remember telling my husband, I can't do this anymore. I'm tapped out creatively. I feel stuck in this box. No one appreciates me. I could feel it in my body, in my chest, this tightness that was telling me it's time for a change. And he looked at me and he said, then don't. It's ready. You're ready to do something else. So let's figure it out. At the time, I was already freelancing on the side. So I was doing some side graphic design projects. And I thought, I wonder if maybe I could turn that into a business. I kind of have a lay of the land. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm really good at graphic design. I don't know shit about running a business, but I could probably figure this out. So I called in, I left a message, and I said, I'm taking an emergency week's worth of vacation, and I will see you when I get back. And for the next week, I set up shop in my living room with my baby in my belly, my laptop, my coffee table, and my couch, and I pretended like I was a business owner for 1 full week. I wanted to know what it felt like to make my own schedule and have my own freedom and flexibility, to use my creativity in a whole new way, like really expand and stretch myself. And by the end of the week, it was incredibly clear to me that it was time to leave the phone book. My chest felt open. My creativity was flowing. I felt happy. I was waking up better in the morning, even while I was pregnant. My body was speaking to me. And so I went back that following Monday. And at 6.5 months pregnant, I put in my 2 weeks notice. In July of 2027, I launched my branding agency. And just a couple of months later, I gave birth to our son. That whole scenario in its own, that deserves a Gutsy plaque, okay? I don't know if it was hormones. I don't know if it was courage. I don't know if it was right timing. Probably a montage of all of them. But it was a profound shift that I made that started the trajectory of all of this. What I'm not going to go super into today is that in between those two events, my husband lost his job. And then within the first 2 years of that, we filed for bankruptcy. If you want to hear that story, though, you could go all the way back in the archives to my literal top downloaded episode, which is Powerback episode 170, which is what filing bankruptcy taught me. Over the next couple of years, I figured it out, right? I tested things. I noticed when I liked who I was versus when I was trying to be something that I wasn't. I experimented with trying new types of projects and different types of ways to network. I learned very quickly the hard way that you should always, I repeat, always have a contract with people that you work with. I didn't know what I was doing, but I figured it out. I hired my first employee, then my second. We expanded our office. And at the peak of our agency period, around 2019, we had 6 full-time employees, a gorgeous loft office, a wall full of awards and accolades, and a client base that was just phenomenal. Now I'm going to put a little bookmark here. We're going to come back to that time frame because shit really changed after that too. While we were growing the agency, we were working with entrepreneurs primarily, okay? People that had big ideas and that were changing and trying new things and going out on their own, and it was exhilarating. And this is where the speaking play, okay, this is where the coaching started to sprinkle its way in, because I never set out to be a speaker. I had no idea that I would coach and lead people. But something I started to notice was we would have our typical meeting, okay, our branding meeting with our team and their team, and we would ideate and come up with all kinds of great stuff and a plan. And then something started to happen. After that primary meeting, the leader or the owner of the company would often say, "Hey, Laura, do you have a minute?" And I was always intrigued. And so we would step off to the side and we would end up in these side conversations that were so deep and so raw. These were all the things that people, they just couldn't say in front of everybody else. The big ideas that everyone would think was batshit crazy. the fears that were keeping them up at night, but they didn't want to tell their team or even their spouse sometimes because they didn't want people to think that things were falling apart. They talked about the nervous energy in this growth spurt that they were having and how their mind went from this to that and everything in between, sometimes in a 30-second cycle. And when I tell you, in these side conversations, the way that my body lit up, it was like, I'm certain I was probably actually physically leaning in. I wanted more of this. I loved the raw, gritty, this is the real shit, because you know what? I was having those same thoughts and feelings. And the more we had these conversations, I thought, well, if they're feeling like this and I'm feeling like this, maybe, just maybe there are other people that are feeling like this too. And so I thought, I want to start sharing these stories for the people that are willing to be open and raw and vulnerable and share this stuff to help people say, you know what? I thought I was the only one. Thank you. So that's what I did. I started what used to be called the Green Couch Project, and I would have entrepreneurs come in and I would interview them. It was this whole setup with a videographer and a photographer and like my whole team and my office. I mean, it was a whole shebang. Okay. We had the conversations that nobody else was having. We documented it and then we shared it on YouTube. And all of those videos, by the way, still live on my YouTube channel, which is now LauraAura and the Gutsy Podcast. If you want to watch those, they're short, they're sweet, and I swear to you, they will make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. So I will link that YouTube channel in the show notes below. I wanted to grow it. I wanted to expand it, but the production of it was expensive. Okay. It was a lot and there was no money coming in from this. This was pretty much a passion project at the time. So again, I got to this point where there was some friction, there was some discomfort, there was a pull for more. And I thought, well, if I figured out how to launch a YouTube, I could probably figure out how to launch a podcast. So what if I took this physical in-person thing and we expanded it in a way that the production costs go down, but the reach is like infinite because I can talk to anybody from anywhere now at this point. So the Green Couch Project then turned into what is now known as the Gutsy Podcast. The first episode of the Gutsy Podcast launched in January of 2019. So we're back into the timeline where I left a bookmark for us just a couple of minutes ago. I had no idea that 2019 was going to be the last, we'll call it quote unquote, normal year before everything was going to change. Things were looking really good, but also kind of falling apart in the background. Clients weren't coming in as frequently as they used to. Our expenses were up. Budgets got really tight. At the worst of it, paychecks started to bounce and my health took an absolute tank. I developed an autoimmune disorder. I couldn't sleep at night. My anxiety and depression were off the freaking charts. And I can remember these kind of little moments, these little glimmers of, Laura, maybe we need to downsize. And then my brain would immediately jump in and be like, absolutely not. We can do this. And then I'd figure something out and then we'd have another tough situation and I'd be back in that little moment of, Laura, maybe we should let this office go. You know, this would really help us to save some expenses. And I'd be like, oh no, but I got to fight this. I can do this. I can figure this out. And honestly, all that was really happening was I was ignoring myself. I was ignoring my truth. I was ignoring what I knew needed to happen. And primarily because I didn't want to let other people down. I didn't want to look like I didn't have my shit together. I didn't want to admit that things were not actually truly working. And if there's one thing that I know to be true, is that when it is truly time for you to make a change and you have not listened to the little whispers, the cues, the subtle hints that the universe has given you, if it's really truly time, it's going to make you. Insert March 2020. The concerns around COVID were growing. It was declared that we were now in a pandemic. And if there's one additional thing that I know to be true, is that when budgets get tight, branding and marketing are always the first to get cut. I was driving to the office and I can remember hearing so clearly, almost as if somebody was literally sitting in my head that said, Laura, you have to let them go now. And I got this just sinking feeling in my gut. I thought I was going to fucking vomit. I was about to let down all these people that had been working with me. I'm literally about to change everybody's lives and not for the better. But in my heart, there was a stillness. It was, Laura, you know you have to do this. This is the right time. This is the right thing to do. This is what you need to handle today. So I got into my office. I pulled my entire staff into one room and I let everybody go. It was hands down the most god-awful decision that I ever had to make, but it was the necessary decision to make. That afternoon, I packed up all of my shit and I moved back into my home office. And within 2 weeks, we had lost 60% of our business. For the next 6 to 8 months, I sat in my basement office by myself, facing the fact that I had unintentionally built my business on the backbone of my insecurities. People pleasing to make sure everyone else had what they needed. I didn't want to rock the boat or upset anybody. Overworking myself to prove myself. Signing up for all these award shows to just really claim that, hey, I'm worthy of all of this. And staring at the financial shit show that I had enabled. I had 6 months worth of my own paychecks on my desk that I hadn't cashed, and I was staring at a foreclosure letter from my mortgage company. I hadn't listened to myself, and now I had to deal with it. One night, I don't know, probably close to a year into all of this, the dust had kind of settled. I can remember it was really late one night, 11, 12 o'clock, and everything was quiet. I was sitting in my basement office with a little lamp in the corner and my laptop on. And it felt like maybe for the first time, things were okay for a second. And I sat back in my chair, let out a big deep breath. And I can remember this question coming to my mind. And I thought, what does Laura want? What does Laura want? I realized I hadn't asked myself that question in probably over a decade. And when I really opened myself up, I allowed myself to answer this question truthfully and honestly, not with perfecting it, not with figuring out how, not with trying to curate it, but just being honest with what I wanted. The answer was very clear. I want to speak. I want to coach women how to do the things that they want to do. I want to expand this podcast that kind of seems like it's doing pretty well. Maybe, just maybe, this could be part of my career path. So that night, I reserved LauraAura.com and I started to build out my website. I got the branding agency back to a healthy place. I realized that, hey, it turns out I don't like being a boss. I don't like leading a big team. So I restructured the business in a way that worked for me. And when things got in a pretty solid place again, I did what every normal, sane human being does. I bought a commercial building. I moved my agency into this building. I moved my podcast equipment and studio into this building. And I started to ideate this whole grand vision of turning this awesome freaking building in my downtown into an entrepreneurial hub. We were going to have co-working space and event space and places where people could come in and rent, a community center. It was buzzing, right? We had renderings made. We had the community involved. We were putting out social media posts about it. We hosted pop-up shops. People rented it for events on the first floor. I mean, it was a whole thing. Okay. This is a 3-story building, by the way. So I'm in here running my agency. I started to coach some people a little bit here and there. I started to dabble into speaking, but wasn't really getting anywhere. And the Gutsy Podcast was expanding. And then somebody asked me one day, they were like, hey, we're hosting a women's event. Would you like to speak at it? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And she was like, fantastic. We'd love for you to come speak about branding. Okay. When I tell you, it felt like I just walked into a brick wall. The tightness in my chest, it was like I literally physically could not move. I could not speak. And I was like, uh-oh, there's something happening right now. I'm getting some information. This is a little nerve-wracking because I don't want to do that. I ended up turning down that gig because I did not want to speak about branding. And that set me off on an internal journey of what you fucking talking about, Laura? You've spent the last 20 years of your life building a career and a reputation in branding. And it wasn't long after that things started to unravel, okay, in a whole different way. In a way where, again, I started to feel this nudge of like, am I getting at a pivot point? I'm noticing that I don't really love this work anymore. Getting out of bed isn't as easy. I'm not excited to do this work. I am procrastinating like hell. I don't have any new ideas. I don't have any ambition to grow the business. I'm not even marketing it anymore. Okay, all signs and signals, right? I'm seeing blinking lights, and in my mind, I'm thinking, am I done with this? And then I'm like, no, you can't do that because how are you going to pay your bills? And everyone knows this. And this is what your skills are in. And this is what your degree's in. And right? I mean, there were 4 million reasons why I shouldn't let this thing go. But there was one reason that I should. I wasn't happy anymore. I was done. I wasn't quitting. I was just finished. The straw that broke the camel's back was our biggest client financially. Their contract was ending. And I didn't want to replace them. Right around that same time frame, The lead designer that was working with us was moving on to her next opportunity. Wouldn't you know, I'm faced with another decision to make. I can remember this day as if it happened yesterday. All of those things happened at one time, and I could feel this build in my body. And I'm sitting at the building downtown, and I call my husband, who was home at the time, and I was like, you need to get to the building now. Something is happening, and I need to not be alone. So he got there as quickly as he could. He walked into the building, and when I tell you that I let out a wail of a cry that I could not replicate today, right now in this moment, if I wanted to, because I swear to you, it came from the depths of my soul. I cried so hard, and for the first time, I said out loud, I don't want this business anymore. And what I thought was going to be a scary thing to admit was a fucking relief. I felt like a 10,000 pound ton was taken off of my chest. I exhaled for the first time in probably years. I felt like there were options. Like I wasn't going to be stuck in this anymore. And when I stopped hyperventilating, I started to think about the possibility that maybe this is when I could really ramp up my speaking. I had done quite a few events, but I certainly was not getting paid yet. I had been coaching, but nothing consistently. Most of the reason I couldn't do those things, I didn't have the time. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the capacity because I was spread between 3 fucking businesses. FYI, not easy. I was trying to grow and manage and expand a building and an agency and speaking and a podcast and, not to mention all of my personal shit. But when I decided I was going to let go of the business, man, could it be possible that this is my time to do what I truly want to do? Is it possible that this is what I've been working towards this entire time? So in July of 2023, I decided I was going to sell my agency. By December of that same year, it was sold. Now, fun little twist in here. Just a few months before the business sold, I started to get the same freaking feeling about the building. But this one came with a whole different set of weight and responsibilities. I mean, we had told, I swear to you, everybody in my fucking zip code about what we were doing. People were excited. There was a waiting list for people to rent the space. My husband and I were co-creating this together. Like it was a project that we were bringing to life together. I had invested a lot of time and a lot of money on these renderings and just perfecting things. Shit, I had the tile picked out, okay? I think I still have the tile blocks in my basement right now. But when I cleared that energy around letting go of the business, the building came to the front. And it was like, I don't think I want this either. This feels heavy. The financial responsibility of this felt like eternity. I was going to have to be a boss again because my husband and I can't be managing the building down there every single day. So we have to have people, but I don't like having people under me. It was going against everything that I wanted. And you know what? It was still taking away from me being able to coach and speak and work on the podcast. So once again, I call my husband over. I said, babe, I got another one. And he was like, oh God. We took a big deep breath together. And I said, I don't think I want the building either. And we sat and we cried. This was a grieving process. We had to let this thing go together. We had to talk it out together. This was a mutual decision. And he started to see the same thing that I was seeing, that this was simply going to be another distraction from what I was put on this earth to do. That the financial responsibility, adding people, like managing stuff. When we did the pop-up shops, we always had 8 to 10 businesses in there and all that people management. I mean, it was just chaos. It was just a lot that we didn't want to manage. And so together we decided we're going to let this thing go. And just 2 months after the business sold, the building sold, and we walked away from everything. When I tell you I am willing to make some gutsy moves and that the universe always puts me in a position where I have to prove that I'm willing to walk the walk before I teach you this shit, you can bet your ass that I'm doing it. The wild part about this experience is just on the other side of both of those things, selling and leaving, I went through a massive, massive grieving process. We're talking about 22 years of my life that I had dedicated in one direction. A building that I had poured my heart and soul and vision and creativity into. All of it, seemingly overnight, was gone. And I was left with myself. I got really, really sick. I ended up with COVID for the first time. And between the COVID and the grieving process of letting both of these big things go, I went into a really, really deep depression. For about 4 months, I could not function. It scared the shit out of me. And I worked with people that helped me through this process. I had a great support team. And I just let myself feel what I needed to feel. I cried it out some days. I laid in bed all day and all night some days. I didn't create anything. It was like everything in me was dead. And very, very, very slowly, but very surely, I kind of started to come back online. It probably helped that spring started to happen again in Pennsylvania. If you're not familiar with PA weather, it's dark and cold and gray and sad as fuck here for the first at least 3 months of the year, sometimes 4. The flowers started to come back out. I started to get a little bit of spark of inspiration. I started to work again, and I started to imagine what it was going to be like to be all in as a speaker, a coach, and to put all of my effort into growing the Gutsy Podcast. For the rest of that year, I spent time figuring shit out, rebuilding systems and processes and figuring things like how do I do things by myself and undoing old habits like overworking and doing things to the all hours of the night because I felt like I had to, dropping old beliefs around what I needed to do and how I should build things. And I just kept refining down to what really works for me. How do I want to build this business? How do I want to live my life? What's important to me in my day? What do I value? I set a very clear intention when I launched this third business that said, you know what? We're going to do this our way this time. I want to build a solid foundation to build an empire on. I want something that's sustainable, that's real, that's fully me. And that's what I did. And then an ad popped up for Jess Ekstrom from Mic Drop Workshop. And she was hosting a boot camp on speaking to learn how to get paid to speak. And I thought, you know what? This is the perfect time. I'm not new to business, but I'm new to this business and I don't know what I don't know. So how can I eliminate all that extra learning curve shit? How can I find out what I need to know so that I can implement things and test it and try it and refine it as I need to? I enrolled in Jess's boot camp and then quickly enrolled in Mic Drop Workshop, which teaches you how to build out your keynote. And then I quickly enrolled in Mic Drop Academy, which was an all hands on deck, very intensive experience to like get in and refine your keynote. I thought if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go all in. There are no other distractions. I have no other reason to not. And while I was in Mic Drop Academy, I booked my first full rate speaking gig. I simplified my offers to only offer things that I loved, that made sense, and that called in the women that I really truly want to work with. I opened the Gutsy Collective. I launched Auraline the Mastermind. And I started claiming myself as a speaker. Because guess what? I already was. The Gutsy Podcast quickly grew to a top 1.5% globally ranked podcast. And I get booked and paid to speak on stages all around the world now. Sometimes I sit and I think about that version of me in that basement by that little lamp at 11 o'clock at night. I think about the vision that she had, that honesty that she gave herself, the vulnerable moment of saying, you know what, maybe there's something different or bigger here for me. Without her honesty, I would not be here right now. Not in the capacity in my work that I am right now anyway. That little vision, that glimmer, that whisper that she felt is real. I am a full-time keynote speaker and coach, and I host the Gutsy Podcast, which you are listening to right now. And it is the most fulfilling, joyous work that I've ever done. It's built my way. It works with my life. It works with my systems. It works with my health. That autoimmune disorder that I developed, it's been in remission for years. My paychecks don't sit on my desk anymore. And I'm just enjoying life in a whole different way. I didn't set out to do this work, but this work was intended for me. My entire mission and focus is helping incredible women like you make the bold moves that you can't stop thinking about but keep putting off. And we start doing that by listening to the discomfort, the misalignment, noticing when something's not quite right and or you're feeling tugged or pulled or directed somewhere else. Start noticing, start listening to what your body is saying. Your body is a compass. It is always guiding you. Your only job is to listen. So when your brain gets noisy, when things get cloudy, it's like, what am I supposed to do? What should I do? Okay? Stop listening to your brain. Start listening to what your body is saying. Notice what a yes versus a no feels like in your body. You heard me say several times where I was flooded with feelings. I had tightness in my chest. I couldn't sleep. My anxiety was off the charts. That's my body saying, hey, we got a problem. We got to talk about this. And I guarantee you that your body is giving you the same cues. I also told you what a yes felt like. When I felt airy, when I felt light, when I felt like that 10-ton brick had taken off my chest. I felt possibility again. I felt kind of giddy, kind of excited. Ideas started coming back. That is a yes. And I can promise you you're getting those too. So the next thing is to trust yourself. Trust what your body is saying before your brain gets involved. Trust those nudges, those cues, those feelings that you get, because all of it is information. Believe in your ability to figure things out. Release control of needing to have every freaking detail ironed out, because that shit, my friend, is stopping you. And when you release control, the only thing left then is to move. I know, easier said than done. But none of these things that I just told you about today did I do all of it at one time. Everything was one decision and move after the next. So break things down. Trust what you're feeling and then break it down. What do I need to do next? What is one next move that I can make? Let it be easy for once. Let it be simple. A phone call, that's a next move. A decision, that's a next move. Canceling an unnecessary meeting so that you have space to ideate, that is a next move. See, your gutsy moves don't have to be huge. Yes, I told you big milestone moments today, but all of those big gutsy moves were only possible because of the hundreds, if not thousands, of smaller gutsy moves that I made on a daily basis. That's how you get it done. I know you've done this before and you're going to do it a million times again, but this move feels different, doesn't it? Because there's something riding on it. There's likely something that you've been tolerating for longer than your body has been willing to, something that you've been settling for. Or maybe it's just a change that you're like, you know what? I'm ready, but I'm fucking terrified. Everything that you want is on the other side of your willingness to go for it. And you, my friend, are ready. If you're looking for a speaker for your next women or business related event, let's talk. You can go to LauraAura.com/speaking, or I put the handy dandy link down in the show notes below. You can also come find and connect with me. I share all kinds of shenanigans online. My handle is @thatLauraAura across all the platforms. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.